There are kids that just play video games online that get a massively larger viewership than all of IndyCar or all of NASCAR. That race car drivers out there, professional ones, are vying to get simulators. Buy simulators real quick because what's up, people? So today is a very uncertain time with the nature of the world pandemic, people getting quarantined, businesses having to shut down. There's going to be a lot of cultural and economic resets going on. And one of them is a pivotal moment in the history and evolution of car racing. And that has come to the point of sim racing. Now, I've spoken in the past about the nature of racing and danger and how racing has evolved really to a wealthy person-only sport, which I'm not going to go into right now because the moment of changing and shifting to simulator racing is more important. But the coronavirus being out there, and God, I hope saying that doesn't get me demonetized because it freaks everybody out right now. But anyway, the nature of what's happened with this pandemic has forced events all over the world to close, to shut down. Formula One, IndyCar, NASCAR, Goodwood, you name it. Everybody's shut down because you can't have people out there. Now, that was done for a public health and safety reason. And that's the only thing that would do that. Well, aside from war and such, but the only thing I can think of that would do that in peacetime without completely obliterating the economy. But it's done something much greater that no one's talked about yet. And it has kickstarted the paradigm shift of the car culture and racing to the simulator world. Now, IndyCar racing, they've been fighting for views for decades, since that big split in the 90s. NASCAR rose and then fell. And frankly, there are YouTubers. Let me put it this way. There are kids that just play video games online that get a massively larger viewership than all of IndyCar or all of NASCAR, rivaling Formula One, etc. And currently, because all these events, these races are being canceled, I know for a fact that race car drivers out there, professional ones, are vying to get simulators. Buy simulators real quick because there are hosted events in the simulator world. I'm not sure whether it's iRacing, etc. I didn't look into it overly careful because that doesn't interest me that much. I like to build things in the real world. But it's happening and I see it. I see the press releases. I see the articles. And I hear firsthand how drivers keep trying to buy simulators because they want to get part of this series online. And that's insane. It's insanely bigger than anybody realizes because that's the moment it all changes. So if these past professional race car drivers and sanctioning bodies that were struggling because it cost way too much money and they didn't really have that much viewership can just go do it online and get much bigger viewership, the entire sport just changed. The evolution just happened. It just went to simulators. Why would they go do anything in the real world? It makes no sense. Because the fact of the matter is, professional racing on those high levels and sponsorships only really existed or were supposed to exist because it was exposure. It was marketing. You could show, Domino's Pizza in the old day or Pennzoil in the old day. I'm thinking IndyCars from the 80s to millions of people. But the world and the culture, because of our internet age, doesn't go outside and do things and risk anymore. So if the sponsorship can't get it in the real world and it costs too much money, it's too dangerous for these people to do it, what do you think is going to happen? They're all going to go simulator racing, which is no different than all these young people playing video games and having hundreds of thousands of millions of people watching them. It's no different. They can get bigger viewership. The change has happened. I saw Dario Franchitti on one of the social media things put a clip. He's simulator racing at the Nürburgring, and he's got one of the crazy twin turbocharged like Sunoco open cockpit Porsche 917, 10s or whatever it was. And he said something about how he went over probably like Flugplatz or something and caught air in the simulator. He's like, this is amazing. And I'm like, yeah, I'd like to see you have the balls to do that in real life like the old days. Which brings me to my next point. I know that's snarky, but it's true. Race car drivers and racing and the world culture is not okay with risking life and limb in racing anymore. And that also has a lot to do with the evolution of it becoming a wealthy person's sport. But that's a topic for a separate time. So racing and professional racing is evolving to the simulator, and we'll see where that goes, okay? There's still going to be a major fight with manufacturers and everything that suddenly realize when this gets big, wait a minute, if we just do this in the simulator world, how are we going to sell real cars? Why would anybody go outside to drive real cars and spend tons of money? A good question, manufacturers. I'd like to see how you figure that one out. But it doesn't matter because the simulator racing thing is coming. Now, set all that aside from the nature of what's happened with the pandemic. My belief at where racing was going to evolve anyway was this. First of all, people don't generally want to travel to a track or a venue like they wanted to in the old days. It's an investment of time and money. Nobody has that. What I foresaw it becoming, if we still drive real cars in the real world, is there could be drivers out there, and they could be any age, from any country, from any socioeconomic class, that are super talented. And maybe if people actually gather, these like drivers or pilots would be in a VR world, maybe they would be suspended in like a bubble type thing that everybody could watch them racing with holograms and such around displaying that. And that would be exciting because they could be people representing different countries, or even like common young people that get picked, like, I know this is an old stupid 80s thing, but it's the first thing that happened. The Last Starfighter, right? And they would pilot real cars in real time at real tracks. And what would work with that is, because the cars could then go really fast. Because if they're not in the cars and no one's going to get killed, then our culture and the world couldn't bitch about the danger. So we could build insane cars that actually go fast. Instead of just spending purposefully obtuse, overly complex, and overly expensive cars like Formula One, because we're too afraid to be dangerous anymore or go really fast. Yeah, Formula One and everybody else could go much faster than they are right now if they grew a pair and were okay with risk. But they're not. So this is what we have. But if it evolved to where simulator people are doing this, and it's like televised, or it's promoted through all social media forums all around the world, and you could actually root for people you might relate to instead of just a bunch of trust fund babies and nouveau industrial age aristocrat, sons and grandchildren of old famous race car drivers, boo. That could be exciting. And then there would be real cars somewhere that you could watch from afar that would be insane and probably wrecking and stuff. And it basically become like, I don't know, like Mech Warriors or something, where it's a video game, right? In a simulator world, so it's okay because it's safe, but then there's something really happening. And that's where I thought that would evolve. But I don't think that's the way it's going to evolve anymore. After seeing what this is with the whole pandemic aspect, I think professional racing, these sanctioning series, is really largely going to evolve. And they're going to fight because they don't realize what just happened in terms of viewership in the internet, because the old rich guard doesn't fully get that yet. But anyway, it's going to evolve into simulator series. And you know what? I might actually watch that, because as a real driver and a guy who works on stuff and would like to push the envelope, and I appreciated all the people back in the day that were test pilots and really daring people pushing the envelope from aerospace to space exploration to racing, whatever it was. I would probably actually watch the simulator thing, because it's not a put-on show anymore. It's a cool simulator challenge. There's people that could be vibrant and exciting, and it might be big, and it might be pretty fun. But here's the part I'm most excited about. And I know there's going to be some trolls out there that yell at me right now and talk about, oh, you don't care enough about human life, and that's too dangerous. Shut up. If racing evolves into be a simulator thing, and that's what the mainstream aspect is, that's where all the big money and big sponsors is, because that's where all the viewership is, okay? And that's where all the the professional drivers nowadays goes for the most part. There's still tracks and there's still cars in the real world. But there's going to be less people there, because a lot of people will go to the simulator thing. And if there's less people, there's less risk. And if there's less people watching, you can kind of go back to pushing the envelope or building things from the ground up. So what I think will happen is, if you can shift the culture to where the mainstream goes somewhere safe to race in the virtual world and create that entertainment form for people, and if you get them all out, then maybe motor racing can kind of go back to where it used to be. A sport slightly on the fringe, like free climbing, or wingsuits, or base jumping, or jetpacks, or motorcycle racing, or air racing. Something that took massive skill and daring, and yes, there was risk. Huge risk. But because of how mainstream racing got and how much money and wealth was in it, that became unacceptable and it got polished. And that's why Jeremy Clarkson, frankly, myself, and lots of other real racers, and we're not allowed to say it. We're not allowed to say that racing was better when it was risky. but it's true. So will car racing or motor racing, when the simulator revolution happens, will it become a fringe sport and go back to being rough and tumble and as exciting as motorcycle racing and everything else? I hope it does. Because what will happen with that shift and that split and the paradigm shift of cultures are a rebirth that for a while anyway, wealth won't necessarily dictate who can be successful. So maybe there could be that kid in some far off land, or maybe just down the road from you, who's 13 or 14 years old and is an amazing simulator racer and becomes a world hero for driving. And maybe there was that rough and tumble person that was super talented and could build anything and knew how to weigh risk and reward and go race real cars where they wouldn't be allowed to before because it would have been too risky. And the sport became a wealthy man's thing because the wealthy aristocrat, trust fund kids, the famous race car drivers don't want to get hurt because they want to keep making money the way it is. There's going to be a cultural shift by the nature of risk, sport, money, wealth, talent, etc. I think it's really exciting because the world just changed. Racing just changed. Sport just changed. And it's going to split. And I think it's going to be great because the people that just want the entertainment of sim racing where there's no risk and they feel good about that and culture and there's no harm to human life can go there and have that entertainment. And we can all watch. And simulator racers, young and old, can try their hand at their times and be involved and connect as a community. And I think that's really exciting. And I also think it's really exciting that the spotlight goes off real racing. And people can be as daring and engineeringly creative as they want to be. And it can be exciting. Maybe a little bit like the old days of Can-Am. That would be awesome. And if I did that and one day decided it's too risky, then I would step out of the driver's seat and let some other young punk get in there and do it. And support that. I wouldn't just cry me a river and say it needs to be safe so I can keep driving and be rich, like is what happened to real world racing in the past. But guys, I know it's going to make some people mad, but I don't care because that's the facts. That's real life. That's what I've observed. That's what's happening. So it's food to think about. And I'm excited. I just, the world was due for a reset. And I think everybody's coming together to do a good job to try to contain this. But at the same time, too, it's pushing change that was overdue. And let's see what happens. But I think that's where it's going, guys. I think simulator racing is going to become the mainstream, real televised things. And I think racetracks are going to go back to being a rough and tumble, fringe level, risky sport. And I think all of that is exciting. So love to hear your comments. Please comment below. Naturally, please share this, and I'll catch you guys next time. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and naturally that you will subscribe, but please click that bell so I can continue to bring you wholesome and entertaining automotive content. Also, a huge thanks to Avalon King ceramic coating. They're supporting this channel and making this all possible. But more importantly, I'm looking forward to using it on all of my vehicles, including my old dirt bike. Ceramic coating bonds directly to the surface of your paint, trim, and plastics to give a long-lasting shine that beats all waxes. It lasts for years and it's easy to maintain. I've got it on my Viper right now, and my car has never looked this good. So give them a try. Again, thanks for watching, and I look forward to see you next time.